that, which should mean that we are live. Let's see what thy browser window thinks about that. Oh, there we go. Aidy's there waiting for us. Can you hear us, Aidy?
Yeah.
Wonder how much lag there is. Aidy, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear that being played back. You'll have to mute the sound on that window, whoever that was.
I don't have anything here playing noise at all.
Mute the sound on that window.
Awesome.
Whatever that was.
We're live on the power of YouTube.
Okay.
Do you want to see a close-up of my video, Aidy? It's amazing to watch. Look. Oh, there might be a bit of lag. Funky.
So it's our first live show on YouTube, huh?
It is, and it's all working first go.
We should commemorate this. Oh, it's something working first go or being live on YouTube. Take your pick.
No, the multi-screen isn't built into YouTube. I'm using OBS to display a web page, and I've written that web page with a table in each corner showing our videos, although Scott's not got video this month due to postal fuck-uppery. So it's just a web page, and I can change that bottom right window live. That refreshes every 20 seconds, so I can change the GIF and what have you. And that's how it works. It's the magic of computers. So hello, everyone. Welcome to YouTube Live. And December live news, the final one of the year. It's a festive one. We've not got a Christmas hat between us.
You know what? We really have royally screwed that one up. Typically, each year we'll have some kind of festive headgear, you know?
I've got a top hat. There we go. I'll put my top hat on.
Well, one thing that we should do, I think, for sure, is we should bring up, what we are, because, when folks go back and watch this that are pick it up maybe midstream or something on YouTube that I almost said Yoo-hoo, whatever, So anyway, I was trying to explain the other day the effects of eating Taco Bell en masse because somebody had suggested we stop there, and I was like, no. And like, what could happen? It was like feeding Yoo-hoo through a sprinkler system, So for those who are joining us who have not heard about us or whatever, we've been doing this now for 8, almost 9 years.
Almost 9.
And yeah, so we do a monthly show about retro gaming. We're not just a stick to the issues kind of crowd. We go off-roading a bit into, pop culture, films, the Vegas adult entertainment scene, whatever suits us at the moment. And we use dirty words.
Can we do that on YouTube?
Oh, you know what?
We should have thought.
Well,
this
we'll
through.
find out. Folks, this may be our first and last YouTube live video. Oh, of course you can. I mean, YouTube is full of that, right? I think.
I guess.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Folks, if you pick us up over on PornTube or Brazzers instead of here.
Brazzers. I'm going to take my top hat off, because I'm absolutely boiling in this room, and B, because my headphones keep falling off.
It did have a gangster appeal to it, though, not going to lie.
It did, it did. I should get an Atari hat with built-in speakers.
If only that was a thing. Oh, we've got, speaking about, putting things in the wrong place, we're going to have to address that Atari box thing, aren't we?
We are. I believe it's been submitted to news.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
So what have we been up to this month? What have I been up to gaming-wise this month? I went back to Zelda Link's Awakening again, and I tried something else. What was it? Do you know what? I cannot remember. But I played a game that I've not played before. So there you go. That's my news. I've got some time off now. Finished work today for the Christmas break, so I've got some time. I'll maybe start to get to work on the driving cab in the garage. See if we can get that up and running soon.
Oh, I'm hoping that's done by the time I arrive.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, all the kit's there. There will be a screen in it. I'm not sure what the final screen will be that goes in there. And there's some fiberglass repair work to do. Stuff like that is cosmetic and can wait. I'll get the basics of it built first, I think. But until I look inside it and see what's in there, I don't know how much work it's going to be. But the cab's in good nick, so it shouldn't be too much trouble to get it working. And I think that's about it, really, gaming-wise this month.
Well, I went through and I beat the Breath of the Wild. Typical of most Zelda games, there's this mushy part in the middle where you're not sure what to do or, kind of how far along you are in your preparation for the quest. You think kind of back to the original Zelda or the other, the Zelda 2 or whatnot. You have a little bit more of a linear progression, so it's a little clearer what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do Dungeon 1, Dungeon 2, right? With this open world sort of stuff, it's a little harder to gauge, if you're on the track and, how important one quest is versus the other. Not beating it up, just saying that, for every Zelda game since probably the second one, I've always ended up with this middle mush part where I'm just kind of wandering around, trying to figure out what my, movement forward is to wrap this thing up. And this was no different, but that said, pretty enjoyable. Definitely some graphical tricks they employed, sort of putting things off in the distance or, sort of a pastel, like instead of having individual, strands of wheat, they'll do sort of a gooey pastel gelatinous blob that wavers back and forth to compensate for the lack of horsepower. If I had to gauge this whole Switch thing on comparing it to other consoles, I'd say it's probably about like a PS3 in terms of power, So I started Skyrim. And Skyrim has been a pure shit show, just to put it plainly. Not good. The game is good, but it's crashed at least a half dozen times. No, like literally just, there is a problem. Boom, gone, right? It does very awkward things. There's a lot of lag and delay. And the worst is that when it runs out of graphical power, they didn't even try and retool this thing. I think they did the bare minimum necessary to put this thing on a Switch cartridge, because you go in and like let's say you're running through like a forest or a meadow and there's all these things off in the distance and whatnot. It'll get to a point where it's running out of graphical horsepower. It'll bog down just a bit. And then in the distance, you'll see all these little dots or crosses that completely obliterate like a whole area and reduce it down to basically like ASCII pixel art,
Mm-hmm.
Are you playing it docked or are you playing it handheld when this is happening?
Docked. And what I was getting to, this is 2011 Skyrim, okay? It's still a premium priced game. Mm. This should have been like a $20, hey, here's something while we build our library. We didn't put a whole lot of work into it, but you're good. It was like, it was a premium priced, full priced, as if it were a new release, fucking 6, almost 7-year-old game, that is buggy and does odd things. So, not impressed.
I've never played it.
I played it, some on a PC. It's okay. I mean, it's an interesting title. It's a departure from the usual, it was a departure from the usual. Let me put it that way. It's got, a definite, Viking sort of theme to it. And it's presented as if their religion was real and effective. So, they have actual potions, actual spells, and all that. So, of course, the druids and all that are real, and they introduce all the mythological, the cat characters and the lizard characters. So it's a well-established, good game. I mean, it's been out for a while. I think you'll enjoy it. Just get it on PC or some other platform.
Yeah. When I've done everything else in the world.
When I've done everything else.
What have you been up to, Sparkle?
Yes, so Skyrim, one of my favorite games of all times. I think it's amazing, so I'm just kind of surprised that you don't like it. Maybe, once you can get past some...
Hold on. I didn't say I don't like it. The game is interesting. The whole, Viking mythology, the combat environment, the world, the dungeons, although they are a bit dark, where sometimes you're like, all right, look, I can't even see the goddamn door. Okay, that's a bit much. But I do like the game. I'm saying they did a shoddy, minimal effort translation over to the Switch.
Well, I think Bethesda, the publisher, is sort of known for having buggy games. Unfortunately, I think that they're sort of pushing the envelope with a lot of what they do, so that kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. But
well, this is 2011's envelope, and they've had about 6 years to clean up any glitches to do a smooth presentation. I'm not going to let them go that easily.
I think it was 2012, to be fair.
Okay, so they've only had 5 full years to produce a non-buggy version on a port at a premium price.
AD said he loved playing it, but it was so buggy on the 360 he had to give up on it.
No, it did come out November 2011. You're right. So it's a 6-year-old game. But wow. Anyway, yeah. So I got a SNES Mini. Tracy was at Toys R Us one day, and they just happened to get a shipment of 2 of them in, and she was standing there and called me. So we got a SNES Mini. I got a 8-bit do wireless controller for it, which is nice. I highly recommend. I don't know. My kids were kind of unimpressed, to be honest. We started playing Secret of Mana. We haven't got to the point yet where it becomes multiplayer. They like Mario Kart. We have Mario Kart on the Wii U. So they were excited to play the first Mario Kart, which they were like, this game's kind of shit. So, I don't know. I think maybe, I was looking back through rose-colored glasses with some of the games on there, maybe not quite as good as I thought. We had fun playing Super Contra or Super C, whichever one it is. I think it's noticeably missing a good shmup on there. I mean, I had just sort of, not that the Super Nintendo was known for really good shmups, but that was sort of a really good genre during the time. And I'm just kind of surprised they didn't have like Gradius 3 or something on there. That would have been.
I just had to pick mine off the shelf while you were talking and see, kind of refresh my mind in the library.
Yeah.
It's nice they improved Earthbound, though. I mean, they got Earthbound on there. That was
I don't think Mario Kart on the SNES has aged that well. I don't think it plays very well now, unless you've got...
No, not so much.
Unless you've got, like you say, rose-tinted glasses and love it from your youth or whatever, but, I don't think it plays well now.
I think my first exposure to Mario Kart was actually on, maybe on the Wii or the DS. No, it had been the DS. The DS was out before the Wii.
I played the N64 one.
Yeah, I like the 64. I never really was a huge fan of the one on the Super Nintendo. I mean, I liked F-Zero a lot better as far as a racer at the time. But yeah, I don't know. I personally just don't think it's aged very well. Was looking at my Coinbase wallet today and considering throwing myself off a bridge after Bitcoin took a huge plunge of close to 30% at one point.
Yeah.
What's it at now?
It's about 13 something it was earlier. About 13.4 it was earlier, I think.
You know, it got up to 18, 19 at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was up to 19 something at one point. And now it's down to $13,144.
Sell.
I have dabbled with Bitcoin. I didn't do it out of any. I didn't buy Bitcoins. I just mined it. I didn't do it out of any financial interest or anything because I just don't ever expect these things to work out in my favor. So what I did about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, back in the GPU days, I started building Bitcoin miners, you know. So I did the CPU mining briefly, and then the ability to use the video cards to process the Bitcoin blockchain transactions, that came out, so I did that. And then when the ASICs came out, which is basically a chip that's designed to do one thing ever, and that's solve these equations for the Bitcoin mining. I started off with the Antminer U3, and then the S5 and the S7. So I've run Bitcoin miners. And over that time, I earned about 6 Bitcoins. I spent about 2. And I've got about 4 now. And what's interesting is I would say my average, I added up the cost of what I paid for all the hardware, the miners, the Pis to run the miner, except the amp miners that stood on their own. Anyway, I did a brief tally, and I figured I had about $500 in miners. And, you know, $500 per miner. I'm sorry, $500 investment per miner. So that's about $2,000 total investment in miners. And if you average that out for something that's worth, at one point, about $2,000 for about 4 Bitcoins. And that ain't bad. But now with it going up to 13 or 16 or the one day I looked, it was like 18.9 or something. I think it hit 19 earlier in the day. That's almost 40 grand off a $2,000 investment. And I honestly never ever expected that. I bought it just for the I bought the miners and did all the configuration just because I like fiddling with shit. I'm the hardware flashback guy. I like fiddling with shit. So just to get the miner up and running and reporting into the slush pool and all that's great fun. And then they just sit there and make a little bit of heat in the corner of the garage and don't you don't mess with them again for months because they stay up. But yeah, I'm glad I did that. That was pretty fun. But yeah, if you actually went out and bought Bitcoin at 19, because I know some guys that work there just now discovering this stuff. They bought it 18 and 19, and then it goes down to 13, and they're like, oh, in the words of Jeremy Clarkson, that's not gone well.
No.
Yeah, I got in at 16.4, so taking a bath here right now.
That's okay. I'm gonna. Now, here's my 2 choices. And in fact, I think it'd be funny for you two to pick which way it'll probably go. I really have 2 choices. If I leave the money in my Bitcoin wallet and do nothing, the bubble will burst, or it will gradually decline until it's worth about $2,000, which is about what I invested in the miners. That is option 1. If I decide to cash this money out and just take 40 grand and throw it in a bank account, or go out and buy something I'd be prone to buy, a couple new pinballs or whatever, whatever the hell it is, right? Let's say I went and bought Stern's entire current production offering, and I do that for about 40 grand. Okay. I guarantee you, I can promise you that Bitcoin will continue to expand. And much like today, we talk about now I'll give you a scenario, okay? back 2013 or something, Bitcoin at the time was $40 value per Bitcoin. And we thought that was extraordinary. I thought that was interesting. We were out in LA at the CatCon convention, and I'm pretty much bored with looking at cat toys. So I go outside to get something to eat, and they got food trucks out there. And this is back, the iPad hadn't been out that long, and people are all standing with their little iPads. I'm going to pay by Bitcoin. This is exciting, right? And the food trucks had the little Bitcoin emblem, and a pizza, like a 13-inch, single person pizza, or in, Europe, a family of 6. That pizza was 0.5 Bitcoins, $20. So $20 for like a 13-inch pizza. Okay, LA food truck prices, that seems about right. Can you imagine being the guy that spent 0.5 Bitcoins is anywhere between, $6,000 and $10,000 today? Can you imagine being the guy that spent $6,000 to $10,000 for a 13-inch pizza like 5 years ago? Or can you imagine being the guy that took in, got 100 Bitcoins today. That's kind of interesting. Well, I got to order the dough to replenish supplies. And he spent 100 Bitcoins on $2,000 worth of pizza dough.
Yeah.
And now he's like, at one point, I was a multimillionaire.
Yeah. Why did it all go wrong?
Yes. So I have two choices. I can leave the money in there and watch either, and it's kind of dealer's choice here, a slow or rapid decline back to about what I paid for the miners. And I can say I used to have 40 grand from a $500 miner investment. Or I can pull the money out of Bitcoin, stick it in my bank account and earn essentially nothing. Or I could go buy Stern's entire pinball offering for basically no money out of my pocket and call that a victory. And then I get to watch Bitcoin go to $1 or $2 million per Bitcoin. And I can say to myself, at one point I was sitting on a couple $1 million and I bought $40,000 in pinball machines. It's one of the two choices. It can only go that way.
At some point it will be regulated and be as hard to make money out of as real money is. They'll get the claws into it or whatever.
Well, that's already happened, Mike. What they've done is the transaction fees have escalated, including Bitcoin Cash.
And
so,
to the extent that some companies won't accept it anymore.
Yeah, like when Satoshi started this thing, the idea was like you could do microtransactions, like literally like $1 in a game to buy something, right? Mm. And it worked at first. But now the average Bitcoin transaction fee could easily be $20.
Yeah. So,
okay, you're talking about $20 to spend $1. It makes no sense. So then people start using it only for bigger purchases, So what are you going to do, right? I mean, I don't know. It's that's already happened. So the intent of Bitcoin has changed from major to, major and minor purchases to major purchases only. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think...
And the government, believe me, our government's already put out, Bitcoins, yeah, here's how we profit from that. Here's how you pay taxes on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going to go crazy stupid into millions. I just don't see it. I think a lot because of the technology behind it, I think a lot of people are scared of it, don't understand it, won't invest big in it. There'll be a few risk takers like there are in everything, but I don't think it's going to go crazy into the millions. I think it'll be a steady burner, then it'll get regulated, then it'll be worth pennies.
Once the government helps.
Yes, yeah.
So Skype
if I were you, I'd a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. I would go and spend that 40.
Or just throw it and save.
I'm in the bushes.
Well, you have to be because you're losing money at the moment.
Damn it.
Selling's not an option for you.
No, not really. And I got a nice letter in the mail about my rental property with the crazy Mexican folks there saying that the local city is going to deem the house uninhabitable if they don't remove their commercial vehicles from the driveway. So it's a little bit of a lost in translation. But the guy was trying to explain to me that it's no problem because it's not his truck, it's his friend's truck that he leaves parked in the driveway. And I was like, nah, it can't be any commercial truck. I mean, it's like this giant refrigerated truck that they sell jalapenos at a flea market in or something, and they leave plugged in at the side of the house. So hopefully that is resolved soon. That's been my exciting month. Getting ready for Christmas here. Looking forward to that. Got Super Mario Odyssey in one of my kids' stockings, so we'll be playing that over Christmas break.
I've been playing that too. It's okay. It reminds me in a few too many ways. It reminds me of Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64, which I didn't like at all. Because just the goofy running perspective and the constant camera zooming and all that. That I would say this, there is a huge lack of clarity on what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go. So much so they put in this mode that literally throws down arrows to guide you through a level.
That ain't Mario.
Oh, and I ran out and saw The Last Jedi. It came out on a Thursday midnight release type thing, and I went out to the first showing without giving away any spoilers. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I know people seem kind of split. They either seem to love it or hate it.
Yeah,
I'm in the camp where I really enjoyed it. So I don't.
Okay, so you saw it. I saw it. UK, did you see it?
No, not yet.
All right. So around the round table here, 2 have seen it, 1 haven't. Go, Mark. Continue. What are your impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was well done. I thought the, opening space battle was very well produced. I thought the visuals were great. I mean, I saw it in 3D. I was like right up with the screen in front of my face. I don't want to give anything away, but I don't know that it necessarily felt like a Star Wars movie. Maybe it felt like a little bit of a spiritual departure from some of the other Star Wars movies, but it was good. I mean, I don't know. The only negative criticism I would have is there was a few times where they kind of tried to weave in some light humor. I'd say like sprinkle a little of that Disney humor throughout it, which it was just a little bit too corny at some points, but it didn't bother me. Overall, I thought it was fantastic. If you're a fan of the series, I would highly recommend you go out and see it. I mean, shoot, I might go see it a second time. I enjoyed it that much.
So the Disney humor part, I noticed that there are a couple of one-liners I was trying to think of. I can't recall it momentarily, but they had the little space penguins, and then the little owl, the little drunken owl with his little owl martini. Remember, he was like playing slot machines, and BB-8 rolls over. He starts trying to plug coins in BB-8, so BB-8 keeps taking them. There's little comic relief kind of Disney humor, But I will say this: did I enjoy it? Yes. Did I see it? Yes. Will I watch it when it hits streaming and whatnot? Yeah, I'll watch it again. Will I go back to the theater? Nah, probably not. But when I saw the first one, when I saw the one before this, the most recent new Star Wars movie,
Rogue One.
I watched it.
Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One. Thank you. Because their fucking naming convention, their numbering convention, is about as sensible as the Xbox One number 4. So people like talk about, the first Star Wars. Oh, you mean episode 1 in 1999? No, I meant fucking Star Wars 1977. So, in chronological order of release, and by name, Rogue One, the second most recent one, when I saw it, I liked it, but I said to myself, holy shit, they just remade the first movie. It's the Death Star thing all over again.
Yeah.
It was just a reshoot, almost like a scene-for-scene reshoot of the first movie. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what I'm in for at this one. So the other day, I went and sat down and watched Star Wars Last Jedi. And I thought, oh, shit, they just did a scene-for-scene reshoot of the one with the fucking Hoth invasion. They end up, it holed up in this cave on this planet, only it's salt, not ice. They mix that up. And they got the little speeders that run along near the surface, and they have to go out and confront these giant walkers. And, one of the members ends up becoming the glowing spirit of the Force. And it's like literally a scene-for-scene reshoot of The Empire Strikes Back. That's the one with the Hoth planet, right?
Yeah.
And the snow speeders. Okay,
Yeah.
So they literally reshot Empire Strikes Back.
That's a bit disappointing.
I don't know. I don't think it was quite a scene-for-scene reshoot. And, I mean, shit, if you like that movie, what's wrong with them refreshing it? I don't know.
Well, okay, so they...
so call it The Empire Strikes Back again.
I mean, look, okay, so they did the remake of the Ice Planet, right? And then at the end, I remember the whole thing with Anakin. Like, all right, so now at the end, you get the little kid that reaches over and does his little Jedi thing out of nowhere. It's a total next Anakin thing, The Jedi Master disappearing into the ether of the Force, Yeah, dude, it was a total remake of Empire Strikes Back. Total remake. And they even, what was weird, though, is they introduced some new characters that, there's two ways it can go. Either they were introduced, the purple hair one I'm talking about. Either they were introduced and now they're gone, or they're going to inexplicably rise from the dead again. So, Mike, I wouldn't say don't be disappointed. I mean, you can't help but be disappointed they didn't make a new Star Wars movie, that they just reshot the first one in Empire Strikes Back. But if you thought that Rogue One was a decent remake of the first Star Wars, then I think you'll find that this is a decent remake of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Which is a good
Let's get into some news, fellas.
Time.
Woo!
Yes.
I'm all about that news.
We're all about that news. All about the news. No treble. All Your Bass is a new video game music festival. This one sent to us by Random Dave. So where is it? It's the 19th and 20th of Jan 2018. And where is it at? It's at the National Video Game Arcade. I wish I knew where that was. Where's the National Video Game Arcade? It's in Nottingham. Of course it is. I didn't realise it was called that.
Well, we didn't even define which nation.
It's in the UK. Rob Hubbard will be there, among many others. So that's right on Vip's doorstep. So I'm sure Vip can give us first-hand news of that. And it's not too far from Random Dave either. Well, not too far from me, actually, but I think it's more their thing than mine. So we'll let it be their thing.
Sheriff, I hear is a real prick. Got one here from 80, and he says, "Hey guys, just wanted to let you know that at the Center for Computing History in Cambridge on the 8th of December 2017, they're going to be doing an event. So, what date, Michael, is this event in Nottingham?
The 19th and 20th of Jan.
Okay, and what date is it today?
It is the 22nd of December.
So people would know about this and be able to attend.
They would, yes. Having prior knowledge.
December 8th, December 8th of 2017 is decidedly in the past.
I wonder how that event was that you're telling us about.
Yeah, 80, if you want to report on it, feel free to chime in and tell us how your event went. We're gonna have to watch this guy's, submissions very carefully.
Yeah. There's another one coming up later. But we'll keep you in suspense for that, because here is a gorgeously cute puzzler. It's a boy and his blob, which gets released on Android. The article is on Pocket Gamer. Do we like the original? You played the original on the NES?
I did, of course, yeah.
Yeah. David Crane game. We seem to be discussing David Crane quite a lot at the moment. He seems to crop up. I've got a clip of him here.
Well, the four of us that left Atari to form Activision were pretty much asked to leave.
That'd be David. What all else do we got?
I got one here. This was I found this online, and then of course the random one, I believe. Let me double check. Yes, the random one submitted this as well as I think a couple other folks might as well. There's a video game documentary called Brazil's Video Game Gray Market, and Brazil has this weird thing about electronics, and always and has for a very long time. And I'll be honest with you, I watched the documentary, and I'm not sure still entirely how the whole system works and why it works that way. But they have almost like these Asian style, markets, right? So because of the official import system, I guess probably taxation through Brazil, a PlayStation, like a current PlayStation, that you would go out and spend $300 to $400 for in the U.S. is somewhere in the range of like $1,400 in Brazil. So to do that, to get around that, they bring this stuff in gray market, right? So now they take like and they're talking about how like they pack these things down. So instead of having like, they're going to bring in like say shipping container, instead of wasting a lot of space on, packaging and all that, they'll pull all this stuff out, cram it into like foam bags, and just fill a container full. They're going to sneak it through. They're going to sneak it all through, right? So stuff that's off the market is still on the market there. And because it's also price driven, something like, say, for example, a Nintendo Wii, they would have Nintendo Wiis there, and it would still be like $400, $500. So they also have stuff like Sega Genesis. And if you go back to like during the Sega Genesis Prime sequence, there were, pardon me, specific Brazil-oriented games and Brazil-oriented consoles. And some of those ended up in the U.S. as oddities. There's always basically a parallel Brazil version of the thing that's being sold anywhere else, right? And they go into the documentary about how this has been going on even since the Atari days in the 70s. They would have clones of things to avoid, taxes and fees or whatnot. So you would have like a copy of an Atari that would be sold only in Brazil. It's kind of crazy, but it's I'm going to have to watch this again to even really kind of understand it. And of course the lines between licensed and unlicensed and clone and original are very blurry in Brazil. It's just about the craziest video game market you'll ever see. So watch this and then probably watch it again because it's really, really hard to understand.
Because you're not Brazilian, that's why.
And these games cost like $1 Brazilian.
Yay. Aidy's saying links are blocked in chat. I've just gone in the settings and it says they're not. It's set to allow all comments. So try again. I have got a YouTube video here. You should click on this and watch it. 36 seconds in, I think it is. So just before that.
All right.
I can play the audio. Actually, you probably don't need to see. I think it's a review of...
Impressionante.
É esplêndido.
Let's turn that off till the ad's gone.
You got that Brazilian stuff in there.
So this is a review of the SNES Mini. So he's holding the SNES Mini when he's saying this. Are you ready?
Let's get into it. It's a chameleon.
So there, proof positive that it was a SNES.
That's funny.
yeah.
You know, I just what's weird is I brought the link up, fast forwarded, and then hit play.
Yeah.
And your audio essentially synced up perfectly with what I had here. So that was kind of weird.
All right. Got one from our good friend, Sean Stevenson. Galaga stuffs. A whole bunch of Galaga stuff is going down, says Retro Sean. So it looks like Galaga is not only going to be a new animated series, it's going to be an anime series, but it's also getting a fully immersive experience in collaboration with the Nuttery Entertainment and Meow Wolf. So it'll be an interactive game and I guess anime series, and it looks like these guys have done some sort of like installation art thing before. So I'm sure Namco is happy to shill out Galaga however they can. It's in a lot of those redemption games that Dave and Buster's know. Always a good classic.
Yeah, it is a good game.
It's nice to see the stuff come back, and get some new life and some new. I mean, look, Galaga's always Galaga. I can always walk in my arcade, walk up to Galaga. I think I might even do it later today. Once I get done with a couple other things, just go up and play Galaga, and it'll always be great. But when you walk into something like Dave & Buster's and you see a redemption game like Galaga or Pac-Man, Battle Royale or whatever, it means that people other than you are seeing it. That the next time you're talking to some millennials, and you mention Galaga, they won't go, "What's that?" They might go, "Oh yeah, I played that Dave & Buster's." And then at least you have some commonality to discuss. Well, there's the original version, and turn them on to retro gaming. So this is good.
And Galaga, I think, is a good one to use because it's one of those that you always think next go you can do a bit better. So you're always going to put more money in and keep trying.
Yep.
So we got one here.
I always like Galaga better than Galaxian, personally.
I flip-flop between the two. I like them both.
I really do like Galaga better. Like, on just a strict comparison basis, Galaga is the better game. It's quicker action. It's, better graphics. It's cool. I just like Galaga more so than Galaxian. But, a couple years ago, I just said to myself, I don't have a Galaxian. Why not? And so I picked up a Galaxian, put it in the arcade, and it really does. I mean, it's a different game. It's its own game. Galaga is simply not Galaxian Plus. It's definitely its own evolution of the idea. But Galaxian is just a really great game, especially, I think, in the arcade environment. It just looks and plays so good in a full-size cab. I can't imagine not having a Galaxian.
No. It let me post a link. So I wonder why it won't let anyone else. Something we need
very
to.
Select.
Yeah. All the settings are right, so something we need to figure out. But one I did figure out here, because I had a go on this when it came in. Dear editor team, I think we're all on that, so you can all listen. I'm sending you the press release of Virtual Consoles. The recently launched website makes it possible to start legendary computers and consoles. For example, Apple II, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, or even Super Nintendo in a web browser, thanks to virtualconsoles.com. Everyone can play with 8 immemorial consoles. Immemorial? Feels like the wrong word, that, but I guess it'll do. Without installing any add-ons or plugins for free. And it is at virtualconsoles.com. Very easy. Go over there and play some games in your web browser. And start up some classic computers, I think. Oh, that might be a different story. I think we've got one where you could start up old operating systems as well. That might be coming up a little later.
All right, let's see here. I know, yes, I have one pulled up here from Sean Stevenson, Retro Sean. He's got a link here to a War Games reboot. And I thought, well, as a War Games aficionado and fan, I'm going to have to check this out. And Sean here says of it, I know we all love a bit of War Games. This looks interesting. Maybe something to watch in 2018. So I clicked on the link. I read the article in its entirety. I watched the video, their little promo in its entirety. And all I can say is I hope something horrific happens to these people before this thing comes to fruition. It's just, if you're going to name Hort and just like use some, no millennial out there, this is like definitely targeted at millennials. No millennial out there knows what the hell War Games is. Leave our War Games alone.
Mm-hmm.
Go create your own goddamn series. Call it, Millennial Hacker, and
Millennial Hacker.
Yeah, call it. You know what? There you go. There, I just named it.
You couldn't make that film
Hacker.
today because Whopper would be considered a male name, and we don't know how Whopper
Right,
identifies itself. It could identify as a dog. You don't know.
It spent its entire computational capability trying to assume someone's gender. No, this is pure crap. The guy basically goes on and on about, apparently they created something called Her Story, which was a game about some girl doing something. I don't know. But I read this thing here, and this guy...
wasn't that a bestseller?
Great. Okay, it's a bestseller. Fantastic.
No, poor attempt at humor.
Well, okay, well, no, it's attempt at fucking referencing something for millennials to this crowd. It's this guy's basically just gushing about how clever he is, right? And he's like, look, the whole thing looks just like a poster in an HR post. It looks like a photo in an HR poster. Check it out. And it says here, as Barlow's quote hints, the story this time centers on a young female hacker played by Jessica Nurse. On Twitter, Barlow noted the concept started before 2017's North Korea-U.S. nuclear drama. Now, of course, we all know the remake of War Games was an atrocity. It was horrific. I mean, it was originally the Chinese invading, okay? Because the Chinese would have potentially, plausibly, the military and industrial resources to attempt an invasion of another first world country. But there were so many Chinese investors in the films that the Chinese said, no, it can't be us, the bad guys in the film. And they won. Oh, yeah. So that's how the story got changed to it being the Norks. Now, the North Koreans in any world are implausible invading anything more than your privacy. And, yes, we're here. So, the War Games, we'll wait for this to end.
Hello. What did you turn
Hello.
off? You turned something off.
Something's changed and it wasn't me.
No, it wasn't me either. There's some chat there. Let's have a look. Yes, we hear you.
Now type, shall we play a game?
I wonder if they can hear me.
Yes. If he did this to throw my
Son, somebody's taking the piss out of you.
You guys there?
Yes.
No,
yeah.
we were high.
Okay, cool. Got it. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
So, reading on with what this idiot said, Barlow noted the concept started before 2017's North Korean U.S. nuclear drama, before the 2016 election even. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? But the message will clearly resonate today. Despite being very real subject matter, Barlow said ensuring that the new war games kept the fun ethos of the original a top priority. Broderick's charisma and the optimism of him and Sheedy in the face of Professor Falcon's nihilism and the logic of the Cold War was the core of that movie for me. That was one aspect of the movie. The rest was an exploration of cutting-edge technology and knowing something other people didn't know. Yeah. But no, this guy, he just needs to keep his goddamn dirty mitts off the War Games name, call it Millennial Hacker, and I'll never even notice it's out there, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah. Adie's going to remake Driving Miss Daisy with Vin Diesel. Just to fuck up old movies.
Well, why not? He's in everything else.
Yeah.
All right, so if you got Vin
I can't
Diesel,
believe this. The Fast and Furious 8 was supposedly
Or The
year's
Rock.
biggest selling movie.
you
Probably
would have
until
to have
Star
The Rock
Wars.
or
But
Vin Diesel, right?
yeah. Yeah. They could both,
And then who
both
would
be in
be
it.
Daisy in this day and age? Oh, I know.
Hillary Clinton.
No, I'm trying to remember her damn name. The millennial Hillary. Dunham. I want to say Bruce Dunham, but that's not her name.
I don't know.
The little spud. What's her name? Damn it, I can't remember her name.
Don't eat me, Hillary Clinton.
No, I don't know.
Lena Dunham.
What does she do?
Apparently she appears everywhere in everything, and it's not approved unless she's in it. Kind of like The Rock or Vin Diesel. So yeah, I think that would be the casting right there. And the car has to be, of course, a Prius.
Yeah.
That concludes our latest sexual harassment update. As a reminder, flirting of any kind is no longer tolerated. Good luck with that.
Animal Crossing
flirtatious,
came out, didn't
didn't
it, this month?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting taken down at this point.
Aren't they just?
You know what? It is an absolute bloodbath out there in the mainstream media and Hollywood.
Mhm.
And, yeah, especially, you got, what's his name? Conyers and then Al Franken. It is just a machine gun bloodbath out there, and I am laughing the whole time.
Well, I know that, Scott, you're not a big fan of the NFL or American football, but
Even
I
I can see it's imploding.
yeah,
I don't even like the European shit either, so.
The owner of the Charlotte Panthers, I mean, they value that franchise is worth upwards of $2 billion. He was just implicated in, misconduct this week where they said he was slapping girls on the ass, like giving them a rating on how good their ass looked on Jeans Day. He was asking people for foot massages and then requesting to shave his female employees' legs. So instead of like coming forward and being like, yeah, trying to face the allegations or come out with a statement, he just said, fuck it, I'm going to sell my team, Just no questions. The team is now up for sale. And it's like, damn, it's pretty big. So
He slapped them all now anyway. There's no one left to review.
yeah, no more reviews. Well, speaking of reveals, Capcom reveals a new mainline Mega Man title in celebration of the video game icon's 30th anniversary. This one sent in from Mr. Dave Lanky, Random Dave. Looks like this month they announced that Mega Man will be coming out with a new Mega Man 11. You guys fans of Mega Man?
Yeah, I've always liked it.
It's all right. It's just too hard.
It's difficult as hell, but it's always been cool.
The little bits of it I've played, I've enjoyed. The first bit of each game is quite good.
Yeah, I had Mega Man 1 and 2 growing up on the NES. I beat both of those. They are difficult games, I'll tell you. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I know that there was that spiritual successor game that came out that was widely panned. What the hell was that called? I don't know, but it was kind of a dumpster fire. It didn't do well. It was one of those big Kickstarter games. And it looks like now Capcom is going to put out a proper one. So I'm sure Mega Man fans are huge. I mean, there's a diehard fan base for that stuff. So.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like it's coming out on everything. So it'll be out on your Switch, your PS4, your computer, your Xbox One. And I'm sure it'll appear on just about anything possible. So there you go. Mega Man fans unite.
Yay. There's another launch as well this month. Animal Crossing came out on the phones, the mobile versions, Pocket Camp. I haven't played it myself, but Millie did try it. She's really enjoying it. Her and her friends are playing, going to each other's towns and all that shit, and she's really enjoying it. She's played the DS one. She's never played the others, the GameCube or the Wii, but she played the DS one a lot. We used to link up on that and what have you. And she's enjoying Pocket Camp. She's not got to the stage yet where you're either waiting days or spending money to continue, but I do believe there is some of that involved in the game, especially if you pump hours into it like you tend to do with Animal Crossing.
So, speaking of millennial games, there is Pokemon Go still a thing? I have not heard one story nor seen one person run around doing that recently. Did it already die off?
I saw one story, but all the buzz kind of died out. I think they got in a bit of hot water with having, you know, young kids and females running through parks at night trying to catch Pokemon and things like that. So, yeah, maybe they let it go away quietly.
Hey, I got a game that I want to plug real quick that I've been playing on iOS. If you're a fan of like the Prince of Persia games and stuff like that, there's this game called Inside by Play Dead. You can play it for free, and then, you know, it prompts you, I think, if you want to buy it or something after, you know, the first couple levels. But sort of a spiritual successor in the vein of like a Prince of Persia puzzle type game. You're a little boy, you know. I don't really even know what the hell the storyline is, but the game's fantastic. If you're looking for something to play, you know, over the holidays or beginning of the year when work's kind of slow or you're taking a dump, check out Inside. Love it.
Yeah, I was going to say something and I completely forgot. What was it? Games, mobiles, Inside. No, it's gone. Can't think what it was. It was fascinating too.
Pokemon Go?
Oh, that's what it was. With you mentioning iOS, what do we think about the whole Apple slowing old phones down? Because they've admitted that.
I didn't know it was a thing. What do they do?
They've admitted that on older phones, they will slow the device down. They say it's to help protect the battery. But they've now got some class action lawsuits going their way from a couple of states where, I forget the legal terminology, but it's what they've done is illegal, basically. If deliberately disabling hardware or not utilizing the capability of hardware is a crime, then pretty much everybody... Without informing anyone. That was the key, without informing anyone. They've been sneakily doing it for a long time. Well, I mean, we all know things slow down over time, especially... you get an iOS device and you tend to update it to the point where it becomes so slow it's unusable. I always assumed it was because of...
isn't going to run Windows 10.
Exactly. I always assumed that slowdown was because it's a newer, bigger, more bloated OS. But on top of that, they are also slowing your device down. I reckon so that you buy a new one. But they're saying it's to help your battery. Whatever. They're gonna be in court anyway, or maybe they'll settle it outside. Who knows? But yeah, there's class actions headed their way.
It's sort of a weird thing. I get it. I mean, they're constantly updating the operating system, so those things need more and more horsepower. You can replace the battery for, I don't know, $75 on most iPhones.
But that's the thing, though. If you've got an old iPhone and you've replaced the battery, they're still slowing your device down.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Like they're deliberately making older phones run slower to prompt you to buy a new one.
Well, they've admitted slowing older devices down. They've not admitted it's to make you buy a new one.
They are able to ping it and see how old the battery is, and they slow it down based on the age of the battery. Is that not correct?
They won't go to that. I don't know that. They won't go to that granularity, though. They'll do it off your hardware number because they can see that. As soon as you connect to the internet, they can see that.
So if I spent $20 and put a new battery on it,
yeah,
or let's say I have one of those cases that snaps on that has 4
extended
times
battery.
the capacity of the original battery.
Mm-hmm. You won't get your phone to run any faster.
But that's what I'm saying is let's say I don't have that battery problem. They're saying, look, we're going to make your apps and everything run sluggish and slow to save that battery capacity. I'm like, no, I'm good, bro. I carry around a car battery instead of jumper cables. And they're like, no, we're still slowing
Well, that's the thing. They never admitted it until recently. They've only just come out and admitted it. So we've always assumed that slowdown is, because of the newer, bigger, bloated OS that you've put on it.
Right. I'm just saying it's a bullshit argument on their behalf.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing me a favor because I can easily buy a new battery for $20 off of eBay and install it, or I could put on one of those battery cases that gives me astronomical cap. Now I've got.
Or you could go to an Apple store and have them fit an Apple battery. Same thing. You end up with a new battery and a hobbled device.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then that's some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that they will settle because that sounds really bad.
Well, first of all, they'd have to undo it and put it right, and then settle.
In the end, the consumers that kept their older iPhones. I mean, I've got the newer iPhones. I do enjoy the newest features and all, but the iPhone 7 I've got sitting on a shelf. It's still perfectly functional. There's nothing dysfunctional about it. The 5 I had is probably still very viable. So to deliberately slow it down and prompt sales, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have old Apple computers. I have an old iMac here that is probably 8 years old that runs fine. And it has the latest operating system in it.
But it's phones they're doing, not computers.
Sure.
Phones. Yeah, I've got an old G4, the dome one. Got one of those downstairs. It comes to
that thing survived a lot of.
Yeah, I mean they seem to build pretty good hardware, at least on the computer side.
Yeah.
And, my phones are good, but if they're purposely hobbling the device, then that's kind of bullshit because. At least based on the computer equipment they put together, I mean, that shit seems to run forever.
Yeah. Oh, look, if you're not running gaming on a phone, there is absolutely nothing inadequate about the iPhone hardware from about version 3 on. For a basic phone, email, all that stuff is still... The iPhone 3 and up have plenty of power to execute it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to work with a guy, and... his daughter was going off to university, and he wanted her to take a computer with him. And he said, I've got an old one. He said, all she wants to do is do a work on it and email and some internet. He said, but I've not got the money to buy a new computer. He said, I've got an old one in the garage, but that obviously won't do it. And I said, well, what did it do when you bought it? And he said, well, some office work and some email. I said, well, I can rebuild that for you if you don't want to spend any money. And I literally... put Windows 98 on this thing, Office 97, and he sent her off to college with it. Cost him a few quid for my time. That was about it. And it was a few years ago, but XP was out by then. So, It was a few years old, but it still did what it was built to do. And same with old Apple computers. You know, that thing of mine will run forever doing what I do with it, which is not really pushing it too hard, doing anything. It was in my daughter's bedroom. I got her that because she was continually getting fucking viruses on Windows machines. So I got her that Apple. And the only reason she had to stop using it was because she got an iPod Touch that needed a newer version of iTunes. And that OS that was on that Mac wouldn't support the new version of iTunes. So that was the only reason she had to stop using it.
Well, I agree. That's a BS move. Got one here from Mr. Michael James. Woo. Nintendo games to appear on rival console. So it's not quite what you think. Don't expect that you're going to rush out and see Mario on a PS4 anytime soon. It says some of the company's older games from the discontinued Wii console will appear on NVIDIA Shield set-top box in China. So they're basically saying that in China, they're going to have Nintendo Wii games on the NVIDIA set-top box, and that is that.
Is the NVIDIA like a big deal over there? That's the only thing I can't understand.
It implies it is. You know, I mean, NVIDIA, the graphics card manufacturer, I guess from this, you can imply makes a set-top box featuring their chipset. So, yeah.
Didn't we just read a story within the last year that said China was opening it up to actual Wii consoles? Like Nintendo was just starting to sell Wii consoles in China or something.
I do remember a story vaguely like. No, I remember a story vaguely like that.
Yeah, it was like, oh, now they're allowing Wii consoles and they're going to sell a bunch of them in China. It's like, well, why put it on the NVIDIA Shield? That just seems like an odd thing.
Well, maybe they're just rolling it out on some controlled small market as a test, and maybe it is just that. Maybe it's a test, and we'll see more later. Don't know. Is it
going to say if it's like a service or something or some way that's not hackable? Maybe that's why they're doing it, because they're worried about piracy.
I don't think the article goes into that, but I found an old item here. Roundup 63, China lifting 13-year ban on game consoles. So this is one we did way back when. In January, blah, 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 of this year, which won't be this year, it will be 2013, suggested the Chinese government was considering ending its 13-year ban on the sale of game consoles in the country. Ultimately, those rumours were shot down by the Ministry of Culture, which issued a flat denial, but a new report has fanned the flames again with seemingly credible sources. So, yeah, they were starting to open up to consoles. But the problem in China, they get lots of knockoff ones as well. You get a PS3 that's not a PS3.
It looks like a PS3, and it actually runs Nintendo software.
Yeah.
You could get a boiled egg that's not really an egg at all.
You can.
Made out of plastic.
Yeah, you know the thing about that, and it's like edible. Well, I mean, strictly speaking, but what amazes me about those things.
Big air quotes around that.
Yeah. How much effort does it take to produce something like a fake egg that costs less than what the chicken makes? I mean, think about it. That's pretty extraordinary that you actually figured, okay, normally a chicken egg or a total investment, once you figure out the feed, the housing, electricity, is about 10 cents an egg. We can do this for 8 if we cut a few corners. I mean, shit. Got one here from Todd Holcomb and Bite Night, of course. One of the major contributors, lead programmer, in fact, of CG Adventures, submits this. Apple II BBS contest. Hey guys, the sysops of some of the remaining Apple II BBSs are announcing the Great Apple II BBS Tour. Contest where users solve puzzles on each BBS. Once a user has discovered the password from each BBS, they'll claim a prize. Multiple prizes will be awarded, including a CFFA 3000, which of course is that lovely multimedia interface for the Apple, so you can use SDs and all that kind of stuff. It's being run on a couple of BBSs here. The 80s Apple BBS Captain's Quarters, and Dura Europus. So full details of the contest are available on HBBS. If you Google... What the fuck is that music?
It's CG Adventures.
God damn that song! It's everywhere. That Shady 80 and his band of Shysters is always looking for a plug.
His band of Shysters.
By the way, if you haven't hit YouTube since you're on here listening to us, if you haven't hit up the British IBM on YouTube, do a search. You'll love it. Of course, Shady 80 and his band of Shysters, known as the British IBM, did CG Adventures theme song for us. So, yes, if you want to check our show notes, here you'll get links to all of these BBSs, and you can get in there, read the contest rules, and hopefully win yourself some prizes. And at least discover the wonderful world of BBSing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Speaking of searching YouTube for the British IBM, they've got a brand new music video out. The single is called Jet Set Willy. It's on Spotify and iTunes as well. The link to the video will be in the show notes page, as will all the other links we discuss. And the song is about someone going back to Jet Set Willy 3 decades since he last played, fixing the attic bug and attempting to complete it on his BBC Micro. So there you go. You can have a look for Jet Set Willy by the British IBM on YouTube. Other bands are available.
Our good friend Retro Sean sent in another one. Something smells fishy. Nevertheless, here it is. You make up your own minds. It's a story that there's a rumor of a leaked Nintendo 64 prototype mini by Hyperkin employee. Mm-hmm. The team at Hyperkin have made quite a few retro-related products over the past few years, but it sounds like it could be more interesting considering moving into the handheld market. And there was an interesting post from one of their VPs on Facebook showing a 64 mini system that features a screen built into a controller. I call bullshit on it. I don't know. Did you guys look at this story?
I did see it, and it's obviously a prototype. I mean, the tooling around the screen and what have you, that's not a finished mold. It seems to be hobbled together a bit, but I could see them dicking about with this stuff. Of course I could, yeah. There isn't really a great way to emulate N64 handheld. Still, there are issues with it, and if they could make a handheld one, I think they'd sell really well. I'd be in for one, definitely. I mean, you've got to assume companies are working on this. We've had the NES, we've had, the Sega plug and plays, we've had this SNES Mini. It's the natural progression,
I mean, would Nintendo let them license that controller for them? And I don't know. I mean, to me, it just seems...
a prototype, so they've not licensed anything. They could do what they want with a prototype, I guess, as long as they don't start selling it or, don't use... Well, until they sell it, it doesn't matter. They can do what they want. They could take a D-pad out of a Donkey Kong if they wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know. Nintendo is so tough on some of this stuff, and with them...
Yeah, I mean, but it's playing original cartridges, so Nintendo aren't losing any money. And if they were to remanufacture N64 cartridges, they might even sell a few.
Well, I mean... Look,
well, they're not doing that.
No, they won't do that.
Obviously, they've had a lot of success. I mean, hey, these SNES Minis are flying off the shelf. I mean, I think it was the #1 selling console the last 2 months or something crazy. They're doing very well with these, one-off pack-in reboots of these consoles. So it's an obvious leap to assume that they're going to go ahead and put out an N64 Mini sometime here in the future. And I think if Hyperkin's looking to put out this thing at the same time, I would imagine Nintendo's lawyers would be tugging on their puds to sue somebody over this shit pretty easily.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, will Nintendo go for the N64 Mini? I mean, are they going to do a whole series of minis, like each one? I don't know.
Obviously. Why wouldn't they?
Or do they stop? Are they going to do a GameCube Mini?
They print
I
money
think once
with
you
this.
get to moving media, you get the same problem you had with the PSP. I think you stop there, or you release digital copies of those games and control that market. But they're not going to do that. They've got the Switch. They could presumably release a GameCube game that would run on Switch. I don't know what the difference is between hardware or anything. Maybe it could run an old GameCube Switch, or you buy from a GameCube game you buy from an eShop, something like that. I don't know. But some future console will, I guess, if we keep going the console route.
I mean, what's the size on a GameCube game?
Data size or physical
data
size?
So.
Yeah.
1.7. They're on the mini discs, aren't they? Are they 1.7 gig limit, something like that? Maybe 1.3 around that.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. So even at this point, memory is so cheap, it would seem feasible for them to put that together.
Oh, I'm sure Nintendo's biggest challenge was finding flash memory small enough so that people couldn't load up all the games they wanted.
Yeah. We're going back to 4K of ROM.
Yeah. This will keep people from playing the games they want to play.
Motherfuckers.
So, got one here from Sean Stevenson. I think this almost qualifies as retro now, depending on who you talk to. Either way, it's a cool article about a cool piece of software from the early days of the PlayStation. And it's the history of Bleem. Now, this is a long read. I mean, this could be printed out into a nice little booklet. But, yeah, it's pretty much about how these guys came out with this PlayStation emulator, and Sony went bug nutty crazy and pulled it out. But, yeah, I mean, Bleem, I remember it being out there, and if you had the right hardware, yes, you could run PlayStation games on a PC. You
could, and I remember the one that was great that they killed off, I forget who it was, it might mention it in here. I know it mentions the emulator, Connectix. That was the first sort. That. Yeah, I don't know if it mentions who bought it, but basically someone bought it and killed it. Might have been Sony, actually. Yeah. Connectix had approached Sony to help design its follow-up product. So, yeah, Sony bought them and killed the product, killed the emulator. And I remember it would probably be 2000, maybe 2001, I guess. Maybe a bit earlier, actually. I'm trying to think which house I was in at the time. But around that era, I was playing full-speed Colin McRae Rally on my PC in emulation in Connectix. It was a wonderful emulator, and I was gutted they killed it. I never made the jump to Bleem. I moved on to something else, I forget what, but yeah, that was a great emulator. And an interesting time, that whole era, I guess. Because you could literally put the disc in your PC and it would read it. You didn't need the ROM, you didn't need to rip the ISO, you could, but it would use your actual games, originals too.
I want to say it was like 97 or so. I had guys in my dorms that they all had unlocked PlayStations. They were all playing burned PlayStation games right on their PlayStations.
Yeah. That was
I was doing quite a bit of installing mod chips into PlayStations at that time. Mm-hmm. Quite a bit.
Yeah. So one here from who's this from? Retro Computer Collectible Cards by Dom. And this is... that's the subject of a previous email, his reply. So this is computer cassette game streaming. So what this is, the URL is 8bitkick, all one word, .cc. And if you go there, he's got a load of cassettes there that you can stream. So you go to the website on a computer, use an audio outlet, connect that to your BBC or your Spectrum. I think they've got PET ones there as well. No, BBC Micro or Acon Electron it is, sorry. And you literally stream the audio of the game from your computer into your original computer and it will load. I would imagine you'd have to dick around with volume and, get a good audio lead or whatever, but you could certainly do that. I remember playing around with this kind of stuff. I got it was a Commodore 64, and I got, took the, the sort of top loader part, the plastic tray that holds the cassette, took that out of it, and I had one of those cassettes that you used to use in your car. So you'd plug the cassette into your car, and it had an audio lead coming out of the cassette. You could put that in an iPod, and you could play your iPod through your car cassette player. So I put one of those cassettes in, plugged that into an iPod Nano, and I had a WAV file on the iPod Nano of the game Manic Miner for the C64. First time it didn't load, so I turned the volume up a bit. Second time it loaded the game perfectly.
Wow. Got a real neat one here from Dave Lanking. And it's an article about building a Game Boy game in 2017. So it's a wonderfully long article that pretty much keeps you engaged. It goes through the process of all the tools to draw the graphical assets for the game, and then all the development environment to actually write the game, and then how about how much easier it is today comparing like a flash cart from the 90s where you actually have a bank of ROMs and everything to a modern SD one where you just stick in an SD card and all that. The one he's referencing here is the EverDrive for the Game Boy. So he talks about the technical limitations of the amount of memory available and how it can be addressed, the amount of RAM you have, just really delves into, the challenges of the art of how it's made above the background, BKGs, and then sprites called objects, OBJ, how you can have a maximum of 40 sprites, and you can't have more than 10 sprites on the same line. Just all the challenges of I want a game, and it's basically like these chips that are flying around, and the sheep is bouncing off the chips or getting stuck to the legs from underneath. And he's talking about what a pain in the ass it was to do just that. The tile structure. You'll actually, if you read through this, you'll get a very in-depth understanding of the Game Boy's hardware limitations and how the thing works. He even does some neat, case studies of how the various artifacts work in Super Wario World. Just a real neat article. I definitely give this a read. Even if you don't know anything about programming, you will totally get this.
Yeah, last month we got one from Random Dave, which was a Game Boy game called Sheep It Up. We discussed the game. We've got we had links to it showing the gameplay, and the guy's written a blog article about how he wrote the game and that whole process. Random says, the fella that made that sheep game has written some blog posts on Gamer Sutra about what he learnt about the Game Boy and how he made cartridges and that. So that whole process, yeah, because he wrote them to physical cartridges. You buy the game in a box on a cartridge. So not only did he write it, he also, produced the physical product at the end, and you can read his blog about that whole process.
Yeah, great article there.
It is.
So, we have come to the first mention of the Atari box.
Yes, we did.
Oh, wait. Before we do that, I want to do one from Spinal.
All right.
As opposed to doing it after.
Yeah. Spinal. Superfan Spinal wrote us this month and said, guys, I haven't submitted news in a while, and this week is no different. But keep up the good work. I look forward to listening to the next episode. So I just wanted to task Spinal with please sending in some news in the future in 2018. Now please commence on the Atari box.
So we knew this was going to happen. It was a huge story over the last couple of weeks. And Alan Hegedas, I am hoping I'm pronouncing that right. He says this is starting to sound familiar, and he sent in a link here. And He goes by Retro Al here. So Al sent, he gets the prize, and I'm sure there will be very many more submissions here on this topic. The Atari box was, we all knew what it wasn't, and we all had speculations of what it might be, but it was, there was nothing there. It was just simply initiate leaked image, initiate crowdfunding, take profits. You know, that was the depth of their plan. And so we knew there was nothing there, and certainly not anything that would bring either us or the newer millennial gamers to the table. So what the hell was it, you know? Well, it turned out they're delaying the Kickstarter to make it even better. And where have we heard that before?
Ah, yes.
That makes sense to me.
So apparently this guy, McFerg, I don't know, who was the head guy there for Atari in the Atari box, pretty much was either fired or quit and just kind of disappeared. And Atari comes out and says, you know what, we're going to make this better and we'll catch you guys later. It didn't happen. And they just disappear. So I'm guessing that their entire plan was to use pretty much a reference design of a set-top box and run whatever they could stuff on it, and somehow they couldn't manage to come up with whatever.
And this is pulled sort of 3 days after, you know, they're still making announcements, they're asking you to pledge support, you know, and then suddenly out of the blue, well, I guess it's not out of the blue for those who saw previous similar incidents, but out of the blue, they just said it's delayed, that's it. We're going to delay it to make it even better. They've got nothing. They haven't shown anything. They've shown renders. They've talked about, you know, what we want it to do, what we want to create, and then they've delayed it because of a lack of one thing. What was it? What was the two words they used?
Anything?
Well, yeah, pretty much. The word's on the tip of my tongue. I'm going to have to look for it.
Hardware and software.
It was pretty much hardware and... what's the whole environment called? Not environment. Not infrastructure.
Ecosystem.
That's the word. Ecosystem. Yeah, they wanted to create basically a product and the ecosystem, which is hardware and software, is it not? Yeah, we're nearly there. We just need to do the hardware, then the software, and then you can buy it. Yeah, it's wow. I don't know. It's
so, but they
ridiculous.
had a pretty. Now, again, all this is really, really familiar because they had a pretty firm target of when they wanted to roll out their big, massive crowdsourcing fundraising campaign, and wow, that kind of came, and right about the time it was supposed to come out, here comes the. What do you mean? What do you mean we can't get the thing out there? What do we do? And then,
what? Yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, what do we think?
Because, there's this moment at which they started promoting, hey, we're going to our crowdfunding thing. It's going to happen on or about, this date. So get ready. And they really thought that their momentum of their hollow ghosts was going to carry them through this. And once they realized very harshly the unlearned lesson until it's learned that it takes more than ghosts and stories, you've got to have the hardware running software, otherwise no one's interested, then they have to suddenly realize we've got nothing and crisis time.
Mm-hmm. So what do we think? Are they going to come out with anything? Or do we expect to see anything? Or is it just going to fade away?
All right, well, let's go around the table. Mark, first.
So it depends, right? Did they spend money on licensing this thing? Did they pay an upfront cost, or is it, a rev share model? We don't know. So if they didn't have to pay anything to license it, up front, then it's possible it could die on the vine. If they've already sunk a chunk of money into this, yeah, I mean, somebody's invested money. So, look, I think the good news is we can all agree the form factor is beautiful. It looks great. I mean, they've nailed the aesthetics. Now they just got to figure out how to make the thing work, and what exactly is that ecosystem and everything else. That stuff takes a little bit more time. Coming up with a good visual design and all that. Obviously they haven't created the tooling yet. I doubt. That stuff takes time, but the aesthetics are there. I mean, and what exactly is it going to do? I'm one that thinks the premium tier $300 console is ridiculous. They're not going to move those things, unless it came packed with every single Atari licensed property, updated games. It did everything that a Roku does. I think that $300 premium price tier, you're now competing with a PlayStation 4. I mean, shoot, during Black Friday over here, you could get a PS4 for $200. I mean, that's a hell of a system for $200. Now you're telling me that this thing's going to be $300? No way. Not going to move, other than the hardcore Atari fan that needs to have everything Atari in their collection. It's not a mass market consumer piece, unless it has killer apps and killer games. But I'm scratching my head trying to think of what they'd have, and at that point it's all kinds of software and other things. So they're going to have to revisit it. They're either going to have to lower the price, or it's going to have some added features or some killer software or something. Or but the model's going to change. There's no way it comes out at $300.
No.
As is.
I think you're right, and I think that the 300 thing was never going to happen unless, and I said this, it was never going to happen unless it had one of two things: either as if Atari never went away, fully developed, full-featured ecosystem that people like me and Mike want to get on and play and experience that world, better resolution, better information, more content, but you go into some sort of store and spin through the cartridges and pick your cartridge, and then they ship it to you, wherever the hell it is. Okay, it had to be something for us, or it could be something for millennials, in which case it had better be a fucking Roku that plays Xbox latest edition and PS4 games as well as they do. And even then, it's going to be a hard sell because it isn't what is currently on the shelf. So my gut instinct, once they came to the realization that they weren't going to be able to take a pretty much commodity reference design of a set-top box, something, honestly, I think barely above a Amazon Fire Stick, shoved in a box with the Atari logo on it, with maybe a Cody level skin over the top of it, and sell it for $300. As soon as that realization hit, then they dropped the campaign, they fired the guy that they were paying to make it, and they're going to go back to selling flashbacks, and we will hear no more of this from Atari ever.
I think if it's an exercise in testing if they've got an audience for something like this, it's been a complete success. But now they've pissed that audience off is the problem. And yes, the audience is there, but the audience is not an Atari audience because Atari's dead and gone. It's a small office in New York and a team in France by all accounts. So it's not Atari. People are Atari fans because of Atari hardware, not because of the Atari company. And so if you come out with hardware, it will sell. If you don't come out with hardware, then you've really only got the name. You ain't got nothing. So I would love to see it. It does look a lovely device, but what's it going to do? It is just going to be a set-top box that streams and plays games that you can buy on a store somewhere.
I mean, if this thing was literally licensed to Roku or Amazon, and it was essentially an Amazon Fire TV, that played all the same games and did all the same shit, and maybe it was a $25 premium, I would fucking buy it. I'd replace my Roku right now with one of those, just to have this, the shell on it and the little goofy controller, and be able to play Angry Birds or whatever the hell I can play on my Roku. I'd be happy with that. But when you're talking premium games and what's going to be in development, I mean, is there going to be a new version of Sinistar or something for, who knows? But I'm not buying it for that.
No, well, they've used the same sort of engine, if you like. The game's system that it will run is compatible with, Unity or whatever it is, so that, if a developer makes a game for the 360 and PS3, as part of that same export process from his software, he can make it run on the Atari box. So you may get some of the indie games that you've seen on the major consoles go into it, but, you're not going to get, obviously, the same quality premium titles, I don't think.
But, I mean, sure, publishers want to sell as many places as possible.
Yeah.
If I make an indie game, of course I'm going to put it everywhere unless somebody is paying me to make an exclusive to their console.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt that these guys have money to attract exclusives. I mean, most exclusives have kind of gone away at this point, with the exception of very few games. Nobody's willing to take the risk and say, hey, we're going to guarantee you, millions of dollars just to be on our console. I mean, that's what it takes. So,
well, unless it's developed in-house.
Or developed in-house, correct. And, like Mike said, if it's just a few guys in an office in France, unless those guys are wonder kids, cranking out some kind of amazing games, they're not going to have the exclusives. I mean, there's so many great indie games right now. I mean, we're really living in a time where, a small studio or a small group of guys can put together some really compelling games. There's lots of really great indie stuff out there. Look at iOS. Look at the indie games coming out for the consoles. But is that stuff going to come out on this thing exclusively? No, it's not. It's not going to happen. So I think it's still going to live on. There'll be some iteration of this. I think they're probably too invested at this point just to kill the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think we'll never hear of it again. So got one here from a fellow named Connor, and he's got a game coming out that he wants us to let you guys know about called Towards the Pantheon. And it looks like it is a 2D RPG. Looks kind of like something that would come out on the Sega Genesis, if I had to guess. Sort of your traditional RPG for 2D. You've got the party that encounters the monsters, and you've got all your stats and everything, and looks pretty conventional and kind of cool. I mean, if you've played most of the 2D RPGs out there, looking for something new, I'd give this a look.
It kind of looks like a Final Fantasy,
yeah,
a homebrew Final Fantasy type thing.
Yeah, of that era. So, good luck to Connor there, and Towards the Pantheon. Give it a look and see what you think.
And he really wants us to talk about that because he sent it to me, I think, 4 times. Which was good of him.
Well, one will do.
Yeah, you seem to have skipped over one, Scott, that I thought you might have hit up. And that is NASA and Amiga history meet in an eBay listing.
Got it right here. Got it right here.
So this is an article on Ars Technica. And they say, if our 11-part series on the history of Amiga and our in progress 7-part series on the history of the Apollo program don't give it away, we happen to be unabashed fans of a certain computing platform and a certain space program around the Ars Orbital HQ. So this week, a small post at Hot Hardware inevitably caught our eye. An old NASA-used Amiga evidently ended up for sale on eBay. So, what kind of thing would they use it for? I guess anything you would use a computer for.
Yeah, I mean, we do in space flight. A lot of what's done with computing is there's a tremendous amount of script development, right? You might need a script to take a certain data product. Like, let's say you're building an ephemeris, which is a mathematical expression of orbit, okay? So you're going to build this ephemeris. Well, it's also called an L set or element set. Basically, it's a set of information that you can say.
Hey, is this script building process similar to like what Harvey Weinstein was doing?
No, not at all.
Oh.
So let's say that you have this element set, right? And you pretty much take it, plug it into something like a Satellite Toolkit or whatever, and it uses this data to, I'm going to oversimplify, basically say, at this particular moment, the satellite was here. And because of everything we know about physics, you can then extrapolate where it's going to be in 24 hours, in 100 years. And the more recent the update of that ephemeris is, the better, right? So you would have things like, let's say your system, your command and control system, utilizes this element set in this way. But now you want to display it on a screen with other data from other sources. So you would write a script, using, Python or whatever, whatever your language is that you like to use. And you would, Java, whatever the hell, you'd write this script to put all this data in a format where now somebody could look across and go, okay, this is the latest ephemeris data, this is the latest clock data, and this is the last, event response message from the spacecraft that was sent. So you could build this whole table of telemetry gathered from various sources that are completely different platforms, right? So a lot of time is spent, with developers where the user says to the developer, hey, look, I need to see these things in one spot at one time. One of the sources is from our proprietary command and control system. The other is from a ground data product. And the other is whatever, right? So, they would do. So a lot of the time is just simply spent putting information into the format that the spacecraft controller or analyst needs it, right? So you would have, like, let's say your programmers like the Amiga because the screen real estate, the resolution, what have you, as compared to something else, they would use the Amiga. Let's say you want to process that in some video product, right, with a toaster at the time, any number of reasons. And the Amiga, when it came out, was quite a powerful machine compared to the PC equivalents, So, yeah, budget's a thing. So let's say the equivalent was a Sun workstation in the early 90s, was light years ahead of, a PC. Or, hey, we can buy Amigas for $3,000 that do the job of a $30,000 workstation for this presentation. Like, let's say you want to draw, say, a picture of the globe, and you want to show the orbit of different satellites. So now you want to go out, read that ephemeris in, and then translate it to a graphical product. So you're showing a picture of the Earth with the satellite going around the Earth, and then maybe information next to the satellite, like I was talking about the ephemeris, the clock, what have you. So now you can, take the mouse and the Amiga, go up, click on that satellite, and the Earth will spin around, highlight that satellite, and then blow up all that data so you can see it, right? That wouldn't have been achievable on a PC with CGA graphics or a simple VGA card, whereas the Amiga could easily done it. So yeah, any number of reasons you would have seen, like, Amiga hardware in that environment.
Yeah.
So this thing is still up for sale. It's priced at $6,700 Canadian, which brings up a good question. How the fuck did this end up in the hands of the goddamn Canadians is what I'm wondering.
Their maple syrup oozes over us like so much evil from the north.
I mean, that's bullshit. And then it's saying on here that some of the programs found on the computer are registered to Dave Brown. He cannot confirm, but believes that this computer was used by one of NASA's astronaut heroes who died tragically in the space shuttle Columbia in 2000. 3 when it disintegrated on re-entry. So it's like, again, how the fuck did the Canadians get this goddamn computer is what I'm wondering.
Very simply, Mark. No, very simply. When hardware is decommissioned, like so well over a decade ago, NASA got rid of all these Amigas because it was an outdated platform. They couldn't get support for it. You know, like one of the programs I worked on. So
Canada?
Well, yes. So, all right, for example, one of the programs I worked on, when we started, we had the latest cutting edge technology. We had, Solaris running on Sun machines. Now, these were, dual CPU with maybe, 4 gig of RAM. This is cutting edge stuff, And each node, so you would have a LAN, okay, which is, local area network. And each node would have different jobs. So, like, one node would do nothing but what's called a FEP, front-end processor. It would simply take the data off the protocol and strip it out into usable telemetry. For one satellite. And then the next computer would take that and in a BAP, background application processor, it would take that data and massage it and prepare it for a database. Another computer would run object-oriented database that would take that data and index it, and then another machine would run a SQL server that would put that data into the database after it had been indexed and so forth, right? So what you ended up with was hundreds of computers all linked together to run this. It cost a tremendous amount in electricity. The cost per machine was astronomical. When I left that program, we were down to, literally the entire hardware room was full. It was just nothing but racks and racks and racks of these computers. Full, case, commodity PCs. When I left that program, we were down to just a few Solaris servers running virtualized machines. So you would have like a global node, which is like one computer sitting there that's got X number of CPUs with X number of cores and, gigs and gigs and gigs of RAM. And it would be running instances of machines. So you would literally have like, 300 machines equivalent hosted on 30 different machines, cutting it down to a tenth of the original machine count, right? So now you've got all these old Solaris computers, right? Literally hundreds of them. What do you do with them? You try and recover some kind of cost. Mm-hmm. You put them out there you sell them all to a reseller who writes you a check for some minuscule amount. Then he puts them on eBay and tries to resell them, right? Or they go to a recycler, and the recycler says, okay, these still work. I hear people like them. They throw them on eBay, right? The U.S. government has a active thing called DRMO, Defense Realization Marketing Office. All DRMO does is get rid of shit the Army and the rest of the branches don't need. So let's see, like those big Army 5-ton 6-wheel drive vehicles? You can go buy one of those for like literally $8,000 in immaculate condition. The way that they do that is like, let's say the Army, so we go over to Iraq and we find out in Iraq and Afghanistan that the Army 5-ton is completely vulnerable to IEDs because it was never meant for that environment. It was never, ever meant to be IED proof. So we come out with the MRAPs and all the new armored transports. So what do we do with all these old 5-tons we literally don't use? Well, DRMO first takes, the units turn them in when they get their new trucks. The DRMO receives these trucks off of the unit's roster, and then they say, okay, so now what do we do? Well, let's say there's like a National Guard unit that needs some 5-tons. Well, rather than go out and buy new 5-ton trucks, DRMO networks these trucks over that Guard unit, and now that Guard unit has the trucks. Let's say the Guard units have the MRAPs. They don't even need these 5-ton trucks, right? So what they do is they put that stuff up for sale to the public. Now, obviously, there's nothing proprietary, unique, or weapons capable about a 5-ton truck with a diesel engine. There's nothing odd about that. So they sell them. They sell computer hardware. You can go buy laptops, granted they're out of date and whatnot, for a couple bucks out of a DRMO office. And at one point, this was a big deal. It was sort of like a get-rich-quick thing. where people would go to, government auctions, buy houses for $5, that kind of shit, right? So there are, I'm sure, like if you go to RAF Lakenheath, which is a RAF base near, there in England that the U.S. military uses, it would not surprise me if there isn't a DRMO office there where UK Mike could walk in and buy old U.S. Army laptops and 5-ton trucks if he so chose. So that's easily how it would end up out there in the. They don't smash an Amiga; they try and get some economic value back out of it.
So I just like I like the idea of Canada buying like sloppy seconds for their own space program. Like that's what I was envisioning. Like Canada's like, hey, if it was good enough for America.
It's not a space Amiga. It's a normal Amiga. You can use it for normal Amiga stuff.
So exactly. Check into that. See if there is a DRMO office. There's Lakenheath and there's another one not too far from Lakenheath.
Rendlesham. Mildenhall.
Yeah. So check out Lakeheath and Mildenhall. See if they have a DRMO that's open to the UK public, and if there is, go down there, buy yourself a decommissioned diesel 5-ton 6-wheel drive truck, and that could be the new commuter car.
So, I mean, this price of $6,700 Canadian, this is a total pipe dream, right? There's likely thousands of these machines out there with NASA stickers on them, probably, right? There's nothing special about it.
Dozens to hundreds, not thousands.
Yeah.
Dozens
this last year, I bid for my budget at work every year, what I want to do that year on the network and with all the system, etc. And some of it was kit refresh, but then we got something else that came up that cost me about 10 grand that I wasn't expecting. I had to pay for something someone else did. But anyway, so I was about 10 grand down on my budget, but I needed 120 computers, something like that. So instead of buying new, I bought refurbs, and these are Class A refurbs, like 2 years old. And they're all exactly the same, which is great for us imaging them. And they will have come from, a bank, an office that shut down, possibly military, doubtful it's NASA, but, that's how stuff like that comes into our hands. There are companies that go and buy all this old kit, and now because of data protection laws and all of that, they have to provide certificates for securely wiping the drives and what have you. No information can get out, so when I buy a PC off them, it doesn't have, NASA documentation on it or anything. It's a complete clean install of whatever I want on it. So they are out there in the market from everywhere.
I think you should secretly take all these refurbs and turn them into Bitcoin miners.
You cannot mine Bitcoins off CPU power anymore. You'll never get a fraction of a Bitcoin. That ship has sailed.
It costs you more in electricity than you make in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but you're not paying for the electricity either, so it's free electricity.
And then when the bill comes in,
when Bitcoin first launched, you could run an application on your PC that could successfully mine Bitcoins. I mean, mine Bitcoins. Okay, that ship has sailed. We're now into the multi ASIC in a single box to have a prayer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what else?
From Dave Lanke here, we have got Scum VM team released version 2.0. So Scum VM, of course, plays a whole bit of the 32-bit Sierra stuff. Brief List, Dark Crystal, Starship Titanic, Space Quest, Police Quest, Phantasmagoria, Leisure Suit Larry's, King's Quest, basically that whole kind of Sierra thing there. They have put together a new version of it that adds support for 23 brand new games and apparently fixes quite a few little things. So if you're a Scum user, check it out.
I love Scum.
King's Quest.
Yeah, I love Scum. One of my favourite emulators, and I tested this just this week. It does, in fact, work. Not that I expected it not to. But yeah, some great games available for play on Scum.
I have Scum installed on my Jerry rig, the discontinued Jerry rig.
Do you use a controller with it?
No, can't.
Mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got it on the Pandora. Plays pretty well on there. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 coming to Switch with exclusive 2-player co-op mode. This one is going to do what it says on the tin, but Bandai Namco announces 2 new Switch games. One is, of course, Championship Edition 2. What's the other?
That's a great game. The first one.
Yeah. Can't see what the second game is. My Hero? Is that a game? I guess it's a game of a manga and TV series. Oh well. Let's focus on the good news in there, which is the Pac-Man Championship Edition. We got one sent in from Amy, which is a website. It's spidersolitaire.co.uk. And guess what you can do there? You can go and play Spider Solitaire in your browser. There's a few different variants of the game. I love a bit of solitaire.
Huh. That, as you were talking, Mike, I found an article. It's, man, this is interesting. Carl Klitsky here sends this in. Phone with Flappy Bird, only $500. Screenshot attached. So Carl says here, Scott always brings up the question of what's going to happen when a download no longer is available and the servers are offline. It looks like this is what happens. Only $500 for this outdated smartphone that has Flappy Bird on it, which is supposedly no longer available. So yeah, I guess let's say Flappy Bird was your thing. You go into the store, it's no longer for sale. You can't put Flappy Bird on your phone. It can't happen. So what you have to do, buy a phone that has it loaded that's not connected to the network so they can't get it. So now it's being $700 is being asked for.
Yeah, I was going to say, he says 5 in the article. I don't know if the price is increased or it's a typo, but looks like a copy-paste job. So, yeah, it's now $700. Somebody out there must have the APK. Somebody will have the APK for it. There's a game I didn't know about as well, because I was reading up on playing games in browsers and the Scum update, and I came across The Dark Crystal, which I think is one of the games supported by the update. Do you remember the film? The animation film, it was a puppet film. I think it was Frank Oz who was the man behind the Muppets that did it. And there was a game. It's a text adventure. And there's a website. It's darkcrystal.com. And if you go there, you can play the game in your browser. Text adventure in your browser. I love the film. I didn't know there was a game. But yeah, I remember going watching that.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that this came out in '82 because I swear I saw this in the theaters, but I would have been...
They could have done a re-release. Some of those kids' movies, they come back out and do re-releases.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe your parents were being cheapskates and took you to the dollar theater. And you just didn't know it was the dollar theater. They said, we're going to see the movies.
Probably the case, but I'm having a hard time. Well, it was the end of '82, so maybe that's why I would have been. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I thought this was more like an '84, '85 movie, but yeah, stuff tended to stay in the theaters for almost a year back then. So, so it was always weird, and it's a weird film. I'm surprised that Disney hasn't. Well, let's see. It was released by Universal. I don't know. Does Disney own the rights to everything that was Henson now? So
I don't know who owns what. I don't think anyone does at this point.
It's kind of hard to track who owns it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was rebooted at some point. You know, we have a family member through marriage that I always call those kids the Gelflings because they look like Gelflings.
Is that what happens when cousins marry?
Yeah, you know, you're like, there's something up with them. Like, what is it? Oh, yeah, they look like Gelflings.
One eye looking at you, one looking for you.
Hope no family members are listening to this.
Yeah. None taken, I'm sure. What did I have? Oh, yes, I had one here.
If you saw these kids, you'd be like, oh, yeah.
Damn.
100%. Yeah.
So this one I sent in. It is the most in-demand toys for the last 30 Christmases, according to me. I meant to say Christmases. So we can have a quick scan through these. We go back to 83 with the Cabbage Patch Kids. 84, Transformers. 85, 86, Teddy Ruxpin. 86, the Koosh Ball. Do not remember that. 88, the NES. 89, the Game Boy. 90 was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 91 was the Super Nintendo. 92 was Barney. I remember that.
Hold on. I want to pause on that Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
They have it listed as $44.95. Now, is that just like? Oh, that's the new price. Okay, that's the current price. Because I was like, those Ninja Turtles sure as hell weren't no $45 back then.
No. 1993 was the Talk Boy. This was interesting. This is the device that Macaulay Culkin had in the film Home Alone. And it wasn't an actual device, apparently, if Wikipedia's to be believed. It wasn't a device. It was one they kind of mocked up for the film so he could record dialogue and play it back to the burglars trying to break in. But then they made it an actual product because they got inquiries about it. Where'd you get that? What is it? And so they made it. The Deluxe Talk Boy. 94 was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. 95 Beanie Babies. 96 Tickle Me Elmo. 97 Tamagotchi. I bought nearly all of these. My kids were just the right age for all of this shit. 98 the Furby. 99 Pokemon toys and cards. 2000, it says here the Razor scooter. We'd call it a micro scooter. 2001 the Bratz dolls. 2002 Beyblades.
Hey, weren't those Beyblades? Weren't those like satanic Pokemon or something?
No, Beyblades were just like a little spinning top, a plastic disc, and they had different shapes, and you kind of spun it, and in this arena that they've got there, and they just hit each other. It was just the last one spinning. I don't know if they had anything satanic on them. I think it was just a shape and a pattern that differentiated them, from what I remember. 2003.
Well, remember, according to the Baptists, everything's satanic.
2003 and 4 was the Robo Sapien. 2005 the Xbox. 2006 Xbox 360, I should say. 2006 the PS3. 2007 the DS.
Go on. I'm calling bullshit on this list. 2006 was absolutely not the PlayStation 3. Without a doubt, it was the Nintendo Wii. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was a shortage of it. Yeah.
Oh my! I mean, there was a shortage for like 18 months.
Yeah.
I mean, people were going
3 fucking years. People were lined up around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
it was
true.
not the PlayStation 3. This list has now lost all credibility with me.
Well, they're saying 2008 was the Wii. When did the Wii launch?
2006.
You've looked that up already, haven't you? I won't argue. But yeah. Well, maybe it launched in Japan then. And didn't hit us, no?
Because I got a PlayStation 3 and a Nintendo Wii like within a week of each other in 2006.
Okay, fair enough. 2009 Juju Pets. 2010
November
the iPad.
19th, 2006.
Yeah. 2001 the LeapPad Explorer. That was a dud. 2012 the Wii U. 2013 Big Hugs Elmo. 2014, the Elsa doll from Frozen. 2015, the BB-8. And 2016, Hatchimals and the NES Classic. And this year is Fingerlings, of course.
We got those fingerlings.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Apparently there's
They're
lots
so
of
stupid.
fake ones about.
What the hell's a fingerling?
It's like a little
It's like a little
monkey you
robot
put on your
monkey
finger.
that sits on your finger, and you could like blow it kisses and like pet it, and it just kind of blinks its eyes and spins its head around. I mean, it's so dumb.
Yeah. It is.
There's also something called the LOL ball that's real popular with the kids. And it's like this giant fucking ball, like a half of a ball, and you open it up, and then it has little balls inside, and you just like, and they're wrapped with like shrink wrap, you know, like that horrible fucking plastic that you have to rip off of things, like usually around like pill bottles and stuff that's really hard to take off.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have like 8 layers of plastic on these balls, and you like rip it all open, and then inside is like a little plastic purse that goes to like a Barbie or something. And you just, there's just hundreds of these balls inside of, you know, larger balls, and you just keep shredding them open through layers and layers of plastic to get what amounts to, I don't know, maybe $1.50 doll with 50 cents worth of accessories. And these things sell for like $80. It's the biggest scam I've ever seen. But they're selling out everywhere. I mean, whoever came up with that is just brilliant.
He's on pet rock guy level stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. No, seriously. Yeah. It's some next level type shit.
Wow. Very strange.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, one here. It is a Kickstarter for Retro Hacker, which is a game for PC. And there are 7 backers so far, pledging $52 of a £2,989 goal. I should have said pounds, not dollars. 25 days to go. And basically, it's a game that you play inside a command line. And you start to hack into a system. And it mimics, you know, being an actual hacker in a command line. And there's a short video there, a little 4-minute video or so that you can watch. And this thing, I did watch the video the other day, and it's, you know, the command line, as you would expect, has got the whole directory structure. You can go in, look at different files in the system, and read those files. And that's, you know, when you get into the game, you start nosing around the system and doing a bit of hacker type stuff. So if you fancy playing that, go and kickstart it.
Do you guys know what the greatest nation in the world is?
We do.
Definitely.
Donation. So we got one sent out right now from Mr. Mike James, and it was a free Star Wars Pinball 5. So Zen Studios is giving out the pinball game for free, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got, I think there's 5 or 6 tables in the game. It's one of the Zen pinball ones, and you only get one of the tables in the free version, but the others are in-app purchases. I don't know how much they are, but you do get one full Star Wars table to play. And that kind of stuff, you know, it's not modeling real pinball, and they can do stuff. You know, you've got characters from the Star Wars films having lightsaber fights on your playfield and what have you, so... If you're going in there for emulation, it won't suit you. But if you love a bit of Star Wars, then it might be right up your alley. As might this, the Midwest Gaming Classic has a new, larger venue. In case you've not been following activity on the Facebook page, they recently announced a change of venue. And it will now be located at the Wisconsin Center in downtown Milwaukee. This nearly doubles the space they had previously at the Sheraton. In addition, the space will be all together instead of strewn about the hotel. No more vendor tent, no more basement or side rooms. Dan Lewson posted some videos of the venue on the MGC Facebook page, so I guess that is the place to go and keep more up to date with that. Also, they are partnering this year with CypherCon, which isn't really my thing, but it may be yours, says Compute. So thank you for that. That was posted in our forums. So it doesn't have a date here. I suppose we could look on Facebook and see. Oh, we could just search, couldn't we? Midwest Gaming Classic. Have they got the dates for this year? Not here, they haven't.
Well, just go to there and wait, and it'll be along momentarily.
It will be. It is Friday, April the 13th, and Saturday the 14th, and Sunday the 15th. It doesn't say what year. I'm guessing that is next year. But yes, it says you can buy tickets. So April 13th to 15th in Wisconsin.
I got a news one in here from Ben Joan. Let's see. He sent us a message and said, "Please help. I'm locked in the cupboard under my stairs. I don't have much battery left, and the signal is all over the place. You need to send, looks like maybe help."
Oh no, poor Ben.
What do you think? What do you think Ben was doing in that cupboard?
I think this is progress because for many, many months he's been confined to Maria's basement. And he has now left the basement and at least made it up the stairs before getting body checked into the cupboard and confined there. So, hey, one more slip and he's out the door into the street, albeit naked and bloody, but he'll be free.
Yeah. Covered in a little bit of sick, but he'll be free. And maybe coming to an expo near you soon.
It's worth it.
Poor Ben.
The road to freedom, Ben. The road to freedom. Be careful what you wish for. All that time he kept saying, I'd like a nice girl. And
did we do
it
this?
could be a lesson.
Did we do the Konami one about their DRM?
I've got that pulled up.
Okay.
I'm going to hit that one next.
Okay.
So,
go for it.
Got this one here from Kip. And he says here, here's a hell of a depth look into Konami's arcade DRM. So this fellow here, links in the show notes as always, did an article entitled Unraveling Konami's Arcade DRM. So all these guys that are into the dance games and rhythm games, guitar games, the whole musical arcade kind of thing, there are frequent software updates. Same thing with stuff like Golden Tee Golf and all that. These just run on normal PCs. It's just a Dell PC, Office Grade commodity PC inside a box. I mean, that's all like Terminator Salvation is. It's literally a Dell Optiplex in a box, you know. So how do they keep people from cloning these things, building maybe, you know, cost-reduced boxes and, you know, buying the PCs at a lower cost and basically making copies of their game? Well, what they do, and this has been going on since they started using commodity PCs. At first, they just use like the motherboard, and sometimes they disguise it in another box. Sometimes they just mount the motherboard to the side of the cabinet. And now they've just abandoned all pretense, and they've just got a Dell box sitting in there. So this guy went and spent $50 on a hard drive that contained the game and the dongle. The dongle is what they've been using to kind of keep people from copying these games by encrypting and containing maybe portions of the code on the dongle. So, like my Terminator Salvation, there's a USB dongle on it. If you pull that dongle, the game is dead. So he takes, the first thing he does, he starts sort of cutting away at this, you know, thing one layer at a time. He notices that the big dongle is way bigger than it needs to be. So he pries open the outer shell, and here's off the
Look
shelf.
how big your dongle is. Oh,
Yeah.
That's a big dongle.
Well, he pulled off the plastic shell and found just an off-the-shelf USB drive, you know. So he looks at that and starts his process, right? So he hooks up the game with one of those external SATA adapters, boots up in VMware, and the game boots up and then comes up with a hardware error. And he's figuring that, you know, that's probably because he doesn't have the I/O board, which is a pretty good assumption. I mean, that's how it works on the Raw Thrill stuff. So he figures out, basically from what's presented to him, that it's XP embedded, and he wants to see if he can run the actual game in Windows 10. So he goes through just the layers and layers and layers of figuring out, you know, getting enough clues to figure out what they're using, what they've done, and quite a few pages later, and he gives lots of code examples and all that, he gets down to where he finds the master encryption file, all the keys, and figures out the way that they hide the location of various things. And I definitely saw this with Terminator, where instead of having things that make sense, like a tree, the directory tree that makes sense of like, okay, graphical assets, character assets, bang, they number everything in, hex or hexadecimal value. So instead of having a directory that says like, hey, graphical assets here, so once you figure out where one is, you can figure out the general location of all of them. They'll call it D44F8E86, fucking 64 bits long. So they basically obfuscated the location of all the files. So you had to go through that and figure out how that was done. But yeah, fascinating read of just figuring out how to get a Windows app to run on Windows, despite Konami's best efforts to keep you from doing so. Fascinating read. I really enjoyed it.
Coming down to the last few.
Yeah, so we got a new one here from Mr. Random Dave again. Keeping them coming. This is back to Donkey Kong World Record score. Just got smashed to bits again. So video games high scores are really high scores, and for the long battle of Donkey Kong's biggest score definitely falls into the latter of this category. It's the holy grail of arcade scores, and it's been the host of some of the most competitive rivalries in history. Well, the high score has been smashed yet again. The previous record holder surpassed the world record of 218,000 set in 2016 by Wes Copeland. And the new record score is, been smashed last night to 1,230,100. Wow, that's a huge jump.
It is, but the thing about this game, I think we'll probably see it beaten again before too long, because it's only like 3.5 hours of gameplay, something like that. It's not a day-long marathon where, you're pushing against tiredness. Yeah, it's a fucking difficult game, but, it's only that much out of your day. You can do it between toilet breaks, I guess. So I think we'll see it constantly pushed up, this one.
At some point,
until they find the kill screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Donkey Kong's a hard-ass game.
It is. Yeah.
You know what? For me, I mean, if you want to keep going for high scores, yeah, forget it. It's stupid hard. If you just want to play, like, for me, it's a very accessible arcade game. If you're not going for the high score, I can walk up to DK, hit go. I can play through the levels, and I feel like I've beat the game if I get to see each screen available in the game. Now, repeating it for perpetuity and upping it another few thousand points, hey, fine, great. I just don't see any need to do that. It's like, okay, I've seen the content of the game. I've played it, But if you want to interpret Victory of Donkey Kong as a higher score, man, that game can go on forever. Got one here from Sean Stevenson, and it says here, Retrobit partners with Sega to bring Sega Genesis, Dreamcast, and Saturn consoles back to the gaming world. Now, this is potentially huge. Ooh. I love the idea of this. So, apparently, Retrobit, and they've been kicking out quite a few, of their own stuff, over the years. They're going to release consoles and accessories, basically a new Sega Genesis, new Dreamcast, and new Saturn. It says here the company intends to introduce several accessories that feature the same great quality as the original hardware, but with modern upgrades leading to support for PC compatibility, USB, Bluetooth, etc. Retrobit intends to show off first look at these products next month at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do. It says here, Here's hoping the company gets a model down that includes analog sticks, just like the previous Saturn Dreamcast, as well as the possibility of downloadable games. So basically, whoever wrote the article here wants them to make it a modern system with two analog sticks and downloadable games. I hope not. I hope what they do is they come out with a hardware compatible, basically, say, a Sega Dreamcast that uses SD cards instead of a drive. I could see this being a very, very cool thing. I'm going to watch this one closely.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to play like original Saturn games? Is it, because some of those are quite expensive, you know? So if they're not going to put out more games, like if you can only find the shit that's already out there, that might be kind of difficult. You know what I mean? Like you could go pick up really good games for a lot of these older systems. You can go find Super Mario Brothers all day long for original Nintendo for relatively inexpensive prices. So you can get the best games of the system and be able to afford them. If you want to play some of the best games on the Saturn, I mean, you're looking at some premium prices. That's
there's no way they're going to put an optical drive in this thing. It's too expensive, too complex. I mean, why put in? I mean, think of the molding, the lid, the alignment, just to have the optical drive, or you ditch all that and you have a sub 5-cent SD card connector on the board, and you put in everything through SD. There's no way they're going to do optical. So yeah, whatever it is, it'll be in non-rotating memory. So whether it be, some fake proprietary cartridge like, that's just flash media like the Nintendo Switch, or if it's actual just straight up SD cards like, the Retrons, whatever it is.
Okay, so this will be like the SNES Mini, but the Sega version is what you're saying.
With an SD card slot or something, yeah. That's what I take away from it.
Oh, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, imagine if they put the Dreamcast back into production with non-disc media. It could make it a hell of a lot cheaper because you don't have that whole mechanism and all the things that have to go along with it, the lid and along with it. You just have, solid-state memory interface. So, yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what they do with this thing.
Your Dreamcast had some really great games.
Yeah. It sure did.
And the optical drives on those things are notoriously finicky.
Well, they all are. I mean,
yeah.
Especially the older they get, they're not aging well. And they were never going to age well.
Just turn your console upside down. Speaking of storage, the evolution of video game storage has been sent to us by Francesca. Hello there, just to let you know, I've created a piece called The Evolution of Video Game Storage, which I believe could be of interest to your readers. What about our listeners? The piece looks at how much the way we play and store video games has changed in recent years, starting with cartridges. We've progressed to discs, and now internal memory in next-gen consoles. You can find a link to the infographic here, should you wish to publish it. There will be a link in our show notes. And it starts off with Pong and ROMs, and then cartridges, memory cards, discs, and yeah, internet, mobile gaming, and cloud, and all of that. Wonderful gubbins. Fairly short article, actually.
Yeah, they make pretty cool infographics. They've sent us some before in the past.
They have.
Yeah, I kind of like this. I'm looking at this here. Basically, they got Pong, which is just simply gates and in a pattern, then into cartridges, the memory save state cards. Yeah, that's kind of about what it was. And now it's all going to be on the web and go to crap.
If you want to play Tron multiplayer over SSH, what are you meant to do? What you're meant to do is go in your terminal to ssh-tron.zachlatta.com. That's ZACHLATTA.com. It will be in the show notes. And before you know it, in your terminal window, you'll be playing the Tron Light cycle game. multiplayer online, which is pretty neat. I shall have to try that later. It uses the WASD combo or Vim key bindings. Do not use arrow keys. No.
What happens if you use arrow keys?
I presume the
You don't even
terminal
wanna
will.
know.
I presume the terminal will come back and put in your previous command, maybe, or something. I don't know.
Delete hard drive? Yes.
Yes. Format C. Yeah. Well, we're just about done there, aren't we?
We are. With our movie bantering earlier, I was thinking the other day, what would make it an amazing movie. Do you guys remember in 2003, Thunder Run?
No.
No.
So we had gone into Iraq, taken pretty much the whole country, and the 3rd Infantry were sitting outside Baghdad. And we knew sooner or later we had to go into Baghdad, right? So they made the call. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a run through the city. They plotted out a path on, pretty much the major highways. And they said, we're going in. And we're just going to do a full, show force, drive through the city, and let them know we're coming, So I was thinking, they've made a couple good movies recently. Zero Dark 30. Did you guys ever finally see that, Zero Dark 30?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is that all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they did the Heroes of Benghazi, I was thinking that the Thunder Run would make a hell of a movie, man. I mean, just go through, the different, the preparation and then, execution and, everything that they encountered on the way. That would make an amazing movie, I think. I would love to see that done, some justice.
I'd like to see the Calico Chameleon as a movie.
You never know.
You never know.
I mean,
be careful what you wish for.
The book, I think, is an ideal stepping stone to a screenplay, which I think would be an ideal, what else do you need? You got the book, boom, someone says, hey, I can make it a screenplay, and man, there's your documentary. We were talking about this.
I would personally be willing.
Ahead. Please,
I would personally be.
No, I don't mind.
The start of his
parliamentary rule suspended.
The start of his sentence coincided with the middle of yours. That's what happened there.
I would have to see the replay. I would personally be willing to go to Hollywood and let some creepy old guy masturbate in front of me to get this book, Chameleon made into a screenplay.
Again, be careful
Whereas
what you wish for.
I just find other. So that's your avenue. I will continue what I was saying and let you know the avenue that UK Mike and I were discussing was to contact guys that have done successful documentaries like, the King of Kong guys, the folks that have created documentaries like that and send them all copies of the book and say, hey, give this a read. And maybe one of them reads it and says, you know what, this would make a kick-ass documentary. And they do it.
I think it still involves someone tugging one out in front of you or sexual favors, though. So,
Hashtag me too.
Mike's like, I want the casting couch.
Hashtag me, please.
So what do you think? You think, so the book gets out there. We get the book into the hand of every independent documentary producer that, isn't doing things on, safe spaces on college campuses, but is doing interesting documentaries. Doesn't have to be about video games. Could be anything. I think it's an insanely compelling story with fascinating characters that I think has resonance far beyond the video game world. I don't know, man. I see this thing getting made. I mean, I really do.
Hope so. So, we're just about done then. We can say goodbye to our first and maybe last YouTube broadcast. and wish everyone a happy holidays and all of that good stuff. Because we're not allowed to say
Merry
Christmas. Don't say
and
Christmas.
a Happy New Year.
Yes.
Hey, what are you guys gonna eat for the holidays? You got anything special you do, or
Whatever they cater into work.
I'm doing something different this year. Normally I'd be at home with the family, Christmas dinner, turkey and all of that. But it's not my turn for the kids for dinner this year. So Paula and I are going out with her parents, and we're going out for a curry. We're going to an Indian, so something a bit different. And then Boxing Day, all the kids will be back together, and then we'll go to a parent's house and have a Christmas dinner on Boxing Day.
I don't even know what that means, but
Boxing Day is
good.
the day after Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna make
Called
a
Boxing Day, and in fact on this show we had the Boxing Day Bonanza once.
We did.
And
we did.
yes, it's basically the
With
day
UK
of Christmas,
Scott.
like I said.
Well, Saturn Moonman in chat says, happy, merry, good, fun times. Well, indeed. There's only one person who could say it better than that, and that's Donald Trump.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless Israel. God bless the Palestinians. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much.
Did you hear that, where his dentures were falling out?
Oh boy, are they in a tizzy about that one.
The United States.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless Israel. God bless the Palestinians. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much.
That reminds me of the that one Star Wars movie, the first of the new Star Wars movies, around like 2009, and Spock's dentures were making that sound for the entire movie. Hey, fuck! If you got dentures, that's gonna happen. It does sound kind of funny.
It does, yeah.
I remember the bit where he's on the planet. He's like, I have been.
So yes, thank you for those who stuck around and listened live, and we shall see you in 2018, which will be here before you know it. A little over a week.
I know exactly when it's showing up.
Oh, you got one of those calendar things, have you?
Oh, yes, I went there.
All right, listeners. Tatty bye. Thank you for listening.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. They hate that one. Hey, Mike, I